Hi everyone, my name is Ryan and I'm from California. I know this story isn't going to seem as scary as a lot of the others covered on this topic, but it's still really unnerving to say the least. This happened during my senior year, which is 2018 to 2019. Now, this was a pretty normal day until all the teachers got a call stating that we were on a lockdown. Of course, with the news of school shootings, any sort of threat was taken very seriously. It was during the middle to late portion of the school day, and I was at the point where I was really ready to go home. But of course, hearing about the lockdown made me really scared that at the least, I would have to be there past when I was supposed to leave. Or at the worst, me, a close friend, teacher, or someone else would end up seriously injured, or worse. We were stuck in a lockdown somewhere between half an hour to an hour until we were finally able to resume our day. I didn't really find out much information on the day of, but we eventually learned that someone was wanted for murder and was apparently hiding out on one of the streets in someone's backyard that was right on the side of my school. The person was caught and they had a standoff with the police. Now, my high school wasn't on any main roads, so tracking them down was a bit harder, but eventually the guy was caught hiding on one of the streets near the back-end streets near the science building, as well as near the portable classrooms. Luckily, none of the staff or students were hurt. I've learned to always be prepared for the unexpected, and to realize that you can never be too careful. Whether you're at home, work, or out and about, or even at school, remember that being paranoid or suspicious when it comes to these situations doesn't necessarily make you a crazy person. It can really help you in the right situation. This happened about 2 years ago when I was in the 6th grade. Everything was going really good for me until my cousin came to my school. I need to say that I came out as bisexual before he came, as it's somewhat important to the story. Anyway, there had really been some drama between my mom and uncle about 3 years before he came to my school. I won't go too in depth, but basically my uncle got mad at my mom because she wouldn't pay his share of a bill. He got really angry and he kicked us out, and I had basically forgotten all about it until he came to my school. He then started talking shit about me and my mom, saying we're poor because we couldn't pay rent. Mind you, that's not even what happened. I later went to the principal about it, but nothing ever came of it. Well, it got even worse when someone told him I'm bi. He then started calling me a bunch of horrible names. He would throw paper at me in the class we shared, and he would whisper to the people near him that I was the F slur. Those were his exact words. Now, you might be thinking, why didn't I just tell my mom what was happening? Well, I didn't because I was afraid that it would cause even more problems. More problems that I didn't need at the time. It made me really depressed. I would even fake being sick so I didn't have to deal with them. I had decided to go to school this one day because my friends kept asking me if I was okay. The next day when I went to school, the day started off as normal. I was in my 2nd class, which I didn't have with them. Well, about halfway into the class, the intercom had started, saying that we're going into a lockdown. We did all the standard lockdown procedures. 1 hour later, we had gotten an announcement saying the lockdown was over. They also said that it was apparently a student roaming in the 6th grade hall with a gun. That really freaked everyone out in the room because we all could have been shot. Summer was called early, since it was early May when this happened. Well, a few days later, we got a knock at the door from the police. Well, the police officer told us that apparently it was my cousin who caused the lockdown. They also told us that he said he was going to kill me because in his mind, all gays and weirdos need to die. It scared me to the bone to think that my own cousin would want to kill me at school, and in front of everyone there at that. The police officer said that he also admitted to stalking me at school, and sometimes even following me home since I walked and didn't live too far away from school. He had memorized my entire school schedule. We eventually moved away to another town where people were a lot more accepting. I've been going to therapy, and it's somewhat helped me recover from this. I still sometimes have nightmares about him breaking out of juvie and killing me in my sleep, or him killing me that day when he brought the gun to school. It's absolutely horrible.
In my early days of high school, I used to get to school super early in the winter because my older brother had basketball practice before school. I would usually just sit in a spot upstairs that overlooked the east entrance to the school and watch the sun rise. I found it peaceful and relaxing. On this particular day, I noticed a man walk into the school carrying a briefcase. I didn't recognize him as a teacher, so I was trying to figure out who he was. He then walked into the doors and went upstairs. He looked kind of surprised when he saw me staring at him. He smiled at me and told me he was substituting today. We shook hands and he walked away down the hall. After a while, it was time to go to class. My first period was English. About 15 minutes into class, I got a bloody nose. I would get them a lot in the winter with the dry air, and the teacher let me go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and held my nose over the sink and waited for it to go away. As I was in the bathroom, I noticed someone was in the far stall. I saw a suitcase on the ground in the stall. Then I remembered where I saw it before. It was the substitute teacher's. I found it really odd that he would take his suitcase into the bathroom with him, and that he would be in the bathroom at all 15 minutes into class when he was supposed to be teaching. After about 2 or 3 minutes, my nose was all better, and I washed my hands and started to head back to class. The man in the stall remained silent and still the entire time I was in the bathroom. I walked back to class and sat down. We started discussing a video we had watched. Not even 10 minutes passed by when the teacher said we were on a lockdown. She turned off all the lights in the room and locked the doors. All of us went into the corner of the room. It was completely silent. The teacher finally told us that a suspicious man was seen walking in the halls of the school. Seconds felt like minutes when we were all sitting there. It didn't take me long to realize who the man probably was. After about 30 minutes, they announced the lockdown was over. I went to the principal's office to report what I saw earlier. I then found out that the man seen in the halls was indeed the same man I had met and seen earlier that day. When a teacher saw him in the halls, he ran the other direction. The police were called and the man was apprehended. The scariest part of this is that they found a gun in his suitcase. It scares me to think how close I came to him when he was hiding in the bathroom. Last year I was a senior in high school. During 5th period, I was a teacher's assistant for a science class. I would usually do whatever the teacher asked me to, like grading assignments or cleaning the lab tables. Other times I would just do my homework or chill. It was a nice break from normal class. On this day, the science class went on a field trip, and I didn't really want to go, so the teacher let me stay back in her room and grade papers. I worked for about 20 minutes and then took a bathroom break. I got back to the room and began to grade more papers when the phone to the classroom rang. I picked it up. It was a recorded message from the principal sent to all classrooms saying they were going on lockdown as a suspicious male was seen on school grounds. I followed the directions and shut the door, locked it, and turned off all the lights. I was a little nervous being as I was all by myself in the classroom, but I knew the door was locked and I should be okay. I tried to take my mind off it by going back to grading papers. I turned on a little lamp on the desk for light. I got through about 3 more papers when I heard a noise come from the back of the classroom. The room was kind of big and had desks with lab tables behind them. I knew my mind was playing tricks on me and I kept working. Then I heard something again. This time I knew it wasn't my imagination. I looked closely around the classroom. When I got to the back corner lab table, I saw it. There was a man's shoe and part of his leg that I could barely see. I was frozen and didn't know what to do. I wanted to run for the door, but I didn't know if I could make it and unlock it in time if he chased me. The teacher's desk was kind of far from the door, but I knew I had to risk it. I didn't want to stay in the room with him. I counted to 3, and then got up and calmly walked to the door. About 3 steps from the door, and I heard more noise as if the man was getting up. At that point, I reached for the door as fast as I could, unlocked it, and opened it. I slammed it shut behind me and ran as fast as I could down the hall. I heard the door open behind me. I saw the nearest staircase and ran upstairs hoping to lose the man if he was following me. I didn't even know if he was chasing me, but I was scared out of my mind. I got upstairs and pounded on the nearest classroom door. The teacher let me in after about 10 seconds. The man did not follow me upstairs. I got in the room and explained everything as fast as I could to the teacher, who then made a call to inform the principal. It ended up being too late and the man was able to escape. I figure he snuck in the classroom as I went to the bathroom, and I don't know if he had intentions to harm me or not, but I'm just glad that I'm okay.
This story is told from the point of view of a female. I'm a college student in my second year at university. Overall, it's pretty nice. Freedom is pretty cool, if you call having a curfew and strict dorm regulations freedom. Anyways, my grades are decent, and there is a few attractive guys in my class. However, currently, I'm sort of stuck, as my entire campus is on lockdown. The text to alert students of the lockdown came around 8 o'clock this morning, and we haven't heard a word since. I room with 2 other girls, a hyper redhead named Allie and a girl from Africa named Samantha. Both of them are nice enough, and we all get along well. At first, the 3 of us just assumed it was a drill. They have those occasionally. That they just wanted to ensure that everything was okay, and that the emergency alarm system was working properly, and that students know how to respond. However, those tend to stop pretty quickly. It's been hours. Not to mention the yelling we heard at the beginning, though it could have just been the initial panic. It ended up stopping about an hour into the lockdown, though it did scare the daylights out of Samantha. Before anyone questions our safety precautions, we have the blinds down and the doors locked. There's a very small wooden chair shoved under the handle, though I doubt that would do much. Sam and Allie attempted to push the dresser from the bedroom to the door. According to protocol, we're supposed to barricade all possible exits. But the doorway is so small that we can't fit the damn thing in there. Figures that the college board, being a bunch of cheapskates, will cost us our lives. I always joke about it, them being so cheap, but I didn't really think it would actually become a problem in the future. I know I may be overreacting, but are lockdowns really supposed to last this long? Internet and cell service keeps cutting in and out. It's so hard to contact the people in the other dorms. Though Samantha managed to get a hold of her mom briefly, she wasn't aware of the lockdown. She said there wasn't anything on the news. I guess that rules out school shooter, because reporters always end up on site as it's happening. I figured posting this here would at least give me something to focus on. Allie and Sam are talking about checking out around the hallways. Maybe we can find some students who actually know what's going on. My college is a pretty decent size, so it shouldn't be that hard to find someone. I figure if we don't hear anything in the next couple of hours, we should look around. It may have just been a false alarm. Either way, I'll be sure to make an update as soon as I know what's going on. Last night at around 9, Samantha decided that she had enough. Allie and I chickened out, so we stayed here. Sam said that she would be right back. She was going to try to find someone and figure out what's going on, but she hasn't come back. Neither Allie nor I have heard anything. It looks like there are a few posts on social media from other confused students, but all of them are in the same situation we are. There was a brief talk about meeting up, but if Sam didn't come back, I don't know what to think about that. We've also tried to call the police, but they keep hanging up on us. I really don't know what to do. It's been a hectic week. Last time I updated this, Samantha had just left, and it was mostly quiet. After I attempted to call the police, Allie and I spent most of the night studying. Exams are important, and it gave us something to do while we waited. I guess I passed out sometime the night before, because I woke up to the sound of police sirens outside. There was blood. Everywhere. I mean everywhere. On the floor, the walls, and even on the ceiling of the hallways. After the police escorted the remaining students out of their dorms, most of them just went home. My school isn't a very large one, So we all lost at least one person. No one knows where the missing are. The officer said that they try to keep situations like this out of the public eye. God only knows what that means. If your college starts giving an alarm, don't brush it off. Barricade yourself immediately. And if someone knows what happened to Samantha, please tell me.
This story happened to me when I was a freshman in high school. It's still the scariest moment of my life. It was about a month into the school year, and it was a Friday. I remember that I was in my second hour class. It was math, and we had a test that day. I was pretty good at math back then, and I was able to finish the test pretty quickly. I felt good about it, and I saw that we still had 30 minutes of class left. I asked the teacher if I could go to my locker to put my math stuff away. She said yes, and I headed out the door. I was in no hurry to get back to class, knowing we wouldn't do anything the rest of the period, so I planned on taking my time going to my locker and back. I walked slowly to my locker, which was on the other end of school. The hallways were completely empty and quiet as I walked through them. I got to my locker and put my books back. I got some gum out of my locker and then started to head back to the classroom. Our school had 2 floors, and I remember that one of my best friends had a class right above the freshman lockers. I went upstairs to wave at him from the hallway, but when I got to his classroom, the door was shut and the lights were off. I figured the class must be in a computer lab or something. When I walked down the rest of the hallway, I noticed that all the classroom doors were shut and the lights were all off. I figured we must be having a lockdown drill. We usually had fire drills and lockdown drills early in the school year. I knew I wasn't supposed to be out in the halls during lockdown drills, so I started to walk back to my math class. After I got down the stairs, I heard footsteps. I didn't want to get in trouble, so I went under the stairs to hide. There was a little area underneath the stairs that was pretty open, but at the same time you couldn't really see from the halls. I saw it was a teacher walking down the halls. He was going pretty fast and had a concerned look on his face. He must have been looking for kids in the halls, is what I thought. He then went back up the stairs. What concerned me was that he actually started to run to go back up the stairs. The thought then occurred to me that maybe this lockdown wasn't a drill. I decided to keep going back to my classroom. I got to the sophomore locker commons, which were just in front of the math hall. But after I walked about 10 feet into the commons, I noticed a man standing in the middle of them with his back to me about 100 feet away. I didn't recognize him, and he wasn't dressed at all like a teacher or a staff member. He had longer hair and was wearing boots with dirty jeans and a black hoodie. He was just standing there looking at one of the lockers. I stood there unable to move for a second. I didn't know if he had heard me or not. I started to turn around to go back when the man punched the locker with his fist and then started to turn around. This stunned me, and I quickly hid behind a row of lockers next to me. He started to walk closer. I ducked down and held my breath. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I heard his footsteps get closer and closer. He then opened up a locker. He sounded to be about 2 rows over from me. I really didn't want to stay there for him to find me, and I made up my mind that I was going to make a run for it. I listened to make sure he was far enough away, but it suddenly got silent. It was silent for what felt like forever. I tried my best not to breathe or move a muscle. Finally, I heard his footsteps start again. They were getting closer. I couldn't take it anymore, and I got out from the lockers and took off running. I ran back the way I came and took a left which led to the front doors. I heard the man's footsteps start pounding on the floor behind me. I ran as fast as I could and didn't look back, all the while hearing him about 20 feet away. Finally, I got to the steps leading to the lunchroom and out to the front door. I sprinted to the front door to see a police car right outside. An officer saw me and the man chasing me and ran in the door and grabbed me, while another officer ran past. The man stopped chasing me and ran the other direction, but didn't make it far as he was caught. I ended up having to answer a lot of questions, but we all got out of school early that day. It turns out the man was on drugs and was trying to break into the lockers to steal things. My teacher and principal weren't even mad at me and were just happy that I was safe.
If you went to school any time from the 90s onwards, the chances are that you've at least experienced a lockdown drill, maybe even an actual lockdown. Obviously, not all of them end in tragedy. Some schools go into lockdown because of a crime committed nearby, or because some parent forgot to wear their visitor's badge. There's lots of different reasons. Most of them have nothing to do with an actual legitimate threat to students. But better safe than sorry, right? I went to school in a post-Columbine world. Lockdowns were always taken very seriously, despite the fact that we lived in a fairly isolated area where most people knew each other. There were regular petitions to allow teachers to carry guns in school. Who knew how long it might take the police to arrive if something were to ever happen? But obviously, I'm not here to debate gun control, so I'll get to the point. Most lockdowns are drills, but I'm going to tell you about one that wasn't. I've always been a pretty nervous and paranoid person. For example, throughout middle and high school, I despised being in the cafeteria because I always seemed to get stuck sitting in some corner nowhere near an exit. It made me anxious, realizing just how much distance I would have to cross just to get out, even if something as innocent as a food fight were to occur. In upstairs classrooms, I would occasionally glance out the windows and ponder where or not the drop might kill me, or if I can make it out with just a broken arm or leg. In downstairs rooms, I would tend to sit near the windows unless I was forced to sit somewhere else. Admittedly, this was also because I just like to look outside and daydream. But like most routines, after enough repetition, you get used to almost anything. If you work in a school, you probably know this like the back of your hand. In the event of a lockdown, teachers are supposed to lock the doors, turn out the lights, and herd students into a part of the room that can't be seen from the window panel on the door. This always seemed a bit ridiculous to me. I once had an English class in a room where the only spot that you couldn't see people from the door was, ironically, right next to the door. The idea of us just lining up there while someone jiggled the knob outside sounded horrifying. However, I did have one major concern. What would happen if I were caught in one of these drills outside the classroom? Was I supposed to run and bang on the nearest door, hide in a closet, run outside? I always figured if it came down to it, if I was near an exit and it seemed like the real deal, I would take my chances running outside. Teachers never really told us during drills whether or not they were real, but someone always knew. There was always that one kid whose mom worked at the school and would tell everyone else that they weren't real and that there would be a fire drill the next day or something. They have a special code for when it's real. A girl named Kelly once informed our entire algebra class, if they say lockdown 3 times, it's only a drill. 4 times, it's for real. We all snickered, but what she said lingered in the back of my mind every time the principal went on the loudspeaker, voice crackling throughout the building, and I always counted, awaiting for that 4th time. 11th grade swung around. Now officially an upperclassman, I let a certain confidence seep into my step. I was 16. Next year I would graduate and would be going to college. I practically owned this dump. I would see everyone that I hated working at McDonald's. You know, the usual 16-year-old spiel. I no longer felt the need to rush into first period. Instead, I lingered in the hallway with other relaxed juniors and seniors and made fun of confused freshmen, and actually made eye contact with my teachers. This newfound skip in my step was what led me to cutting the first period bell very close, as I wiped out my shirt with a wet paper towel in the bathroom. Someone had tripped on the bus, and had gotten what I prayed was iced coffee on me. The stain did not look like it was coming out, and I hadn't brought a jacket that day. I groaned, balled up the paper towel, and chucked it at the garbage. I missed. Through the thick bathroom walls, I heard the distant crackle of the loudspeaker. Were they starting the morning announcements earlier this year? Maybe someone had parked in a teacher spot, again. Lockdown, 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 lockdown. I was more caught off guard by the fact that it sounded like the secretary was making the announcement than anything else. Only after a moment or two did it sink in. This wasn't a drill. I stood there, completely motionless, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do. Finally, I lunged towards the door and yanked it open, peering out into the hall. Every door was shut. I was on the second floor. I thought I heard distant yelling from below. My panic then settled into a cold fear that pulled in the pit of my stomach. I darted back into the bathroom, trying to rationalize things. Maybe I had misheard it and it was just a drill. I tried to remember how the person on the loudspeaker had sounded. Were they frightened? Forced calm? I don't know, and not knowing was the worst part. The police had to be on their way if this was real, I assured myself. So as long as I stayed put, everything would be fine. What potential school shooter was going to check the bathroom? That said, I ran to the last stall, the one for people with wheelchairs, and scrambled up on the toilet. Should I lock the stall door? No, there was no point. If they did come in, it would be obvious that someone was in there. What if somehow they saw me through the small space in the door? Could I somehow wiggle on the ground from one stall to the next in an effort to evade them? By this point, I was slightly hysterical, but I knew, in the back of my mind, like you always know in these situations, if they did come in here, I would probably die. Ridiculously enough, I began preparing my last lines. What would I say? Should I try to plead with them? What if it was someone I knew? Maybe I could talk them down. But I couldn't even convince myself, never mind someone already homicidal. Should I try to be the hero and go for the gun? Right, and get shot in the face. Perhaps I could stall them. Stall them. I started to laugh. I didn't know why. Crouched on a grimy public high school toilet seat, my chuckles faded into harsh breathing, and I told myself not to look up, no matter what. I heard a loud noise from down the hall and flinched, although I had no idea what it was. I tried to still my breathing, and only succeeded in feeling faint. And then I heard it. Footsteps. I was sure of it. Maybe it was a cop, I told myself. The footsteps drew closer. I hadn't been raised to be religious, but right then and there, I started to make bargains. I didn't care if I got shot, as long as it didn't kill me, or paralyze me. Actually, that might be worse. I just wanted to go home. If whoever was in charge of this shit just made sure I got home, I would do whatever the hell they said for the rest of my life. Maybe they didn't have a gun. Maybe it was a knife. Maybe I could get out of this with a few nasty scars and a story. The bathroom door opened, and I went blank. I'm not sure how to describe it. I felt completely removed. I was there in the stall, but also, I wasn't. Like maybe it didn't really matter much either way, like I was beyond all of it. For a fleeting second, I wondered if I would collapse and die of fright. I knew they were there. I heard them. The first stall door swung open with a groan, as did the second. I tried to close my eyes, but I couldn't. My eyelids refused to cooperate. The third stall door opened. I was convinced I could hear them breathing. I wondered what they were thinking. Were they excited? Could they hear my breathing? God, I thought, don't let it be someone I know. The next stall opened, and the one after that was mine. Suddenly the loudspeakers crackled on. Lockdown is now complete. Students and staff, thank you for your cooperation. The person in the bathroom paused. They then turned and left, doors swinging quietly behind them. I didn't leave that stall for another 5 minutes. My first period teacher was very annoyed, but I didn't really care. I informed him about what happened, and he called the vice principal down, and I relayed my story to her. She seemed skeptical about my claim, and told me that the lockdown this morning was only a drill. The staff at the school was questioned, but no one had gone into the bathroom during the lockdown to check for students. I never really heard any more about it, but I am certain that there had been someone in there with me, and they came very close to finding me.